the entry road here off Dawson Forest moving south, we're not contemplating providing parcel connectivity to the parcel here that the seller will retain to the west of our entry road. We're just planning for interconnectivity to the eastern part of the parcel.
So we would amend number 2 stipulation to indicate that the interparcel connectivity would be for the east out parcels. Okay.
What about the bond? The bond?
You know, that's something that we would deal with, but I'm not sure exactly from an engineering standpoint. Can you explain how that process works? I know we talked about doing on streets and things like that, but I'm not sure how it works in the water system and stuff.
Well, my question would be, how would it be released? Normally with the streets, you have a 1-year period or something along those lines, so it would be difficult to have that released. I don't know what the mechanism would be.
Or the value.
Or the value, right.
I guess the third party monitor kind of helps that, and then and I'm speaking away from my vote here, but Jameson, what is our process on how do we monitor the retention ponds that are on sites? Do we go in there on a regular basis from our staff and monitor that?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, if I may, we have a stormwater manager, Brian, now. He's talked a couple times. He's here in the audience today.
Where is he?
Brian, stand up, and I don't want to steal Brian's thunder, but we routinely monitor, like, we haven't always done that. We haven't always had dedicated staff. Recently, we've been bulked into an MS4 area, so we're required by law to monitor these stormwater facilities. An example of that is we are going around requiring these commercial, residential, everybody to clean them up. So we have a system, a policy, a procedure, a law in place that will handle that. Correct.
Thank you.
And it is state law that's required that the civil engineer sign off on a 7-day letter that verifies that all initial erosion control is installed and functioning properly. That's state law.
And just to add to that, all of my building inspectors are getting their blue cards and eventually red cards for stormwater erosion control, so they can recognize it while they are out on site as well.
Chairman, allow me to also comment
Go
on
ahead.
that. Being the fact that we are under an MS4, as they mentioned a minute ago, that's characterized as an urbanized area, which a portion of Dawson County, as you know, has been labeled that. So there are requirements on an annual basis, reporting and everything that need to be done. So providing a perpetual bond, so to speak, on a development when controlled by state regs would probably be more out of line than you know a standard bond that we require on a road or on a big part of the performance basis.
So really no need? Is that what you're
Yes, ma'am.
saying? There's no need?
Okay. I have a motion with the list of stipulations, 6 of them, I believe, 7 stipulations. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines, seconded by Commissioner Nix. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that's approved 3-1. Okay. Next up, we'll move on to unfinished business. Land use resolution update. A portion was tabled from the May 16, 2019 voting session. Public hearings for this were held on May 2nd and May 16, 2019. Jameson, if you come back up.
Yes.
Kind of bring us,
It's the Jameson show today.
bring us back up to what we're talking about here in reference to this land use resolution.
So, and you have it already in your packets, but all in all, what we're looking to do, and this has been issued, this was instigated by concerns of the public. They want to be able to essentially split off 1.5 acres right now, our code regulation says that anything less than 5 acres is considered residential subdivision, and that is not permissible in RA zoning. And they're looking to do that, and with the help of our attorneys, we're looking to amend our land use resolution to accomplish that.
Questions?
I believe we spoke about this last time, the number of times this has happened, and how's this been handled in the past?
Previously, it's been handled in a number of different ways, according to what I've seen. I'm taking a strict definition of and a strict interpretation of our land use resolution, maybe stricter than it has been in the past. And it clearly says that a residential, you can't subdivide, or a residential, anything less than 5 acres in residential, in RA, is not permissible. And so, previously, it has been handled that has not seemed to be a subdivision, but I think I pointed out in my previous presentation that the definition of subdivision is dividing an acre into 2 buildable lots. So it's been handled, like I said, differently among previous directors.
According to who was in there is what you said.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I understood.
Is there a mechanism to prevent this thing from spreading? I mean, I think you had said it was once every 5 years it can be subdivided, not more than that.
Right, so essentially, if someone were to come in tomorrow and say, I want to subdivide this property, and I want to break off just 1.5 acres, if this is approved, of course, it would be 5 years before they could do it again, because we would still consider that a minor subdivision under our subdivision regulations, which minor subdivision is defined as anything 5 or less.
I still speak to this. This just seems like just higher density, and up in my way seems to be where there's larger tracts of land, and I may be wrong about that, but I really want to preserve that, and I understand, but I see where people can take advantage of that and really start a subdivision. So, I like the way you interpret it. I like the way you interpret it, and I don't really see a need for a change. That's my opinion.
Other questions for James?
So if it does, clarification process-wise, if it stays like it is now, application comes to you, your interpretation is that's not allowed. Is there an appeal process that the person can take, or is that where it stops?
No, it's essentially, I'm interpreting that as a change in density. As of right now, as it's defined in our land use resolution. And there's not an appeals process for that.
Okay.
So that won't come before the board.
And I still think maybe that happens more up in my neck of the woods.
And
Can you
just to speak to that, I don't think the intent was to, I don't think the intent was to negate that, but like I said, I take a very strict interpretation of what we have. And what I didn't want to do, and I didn't want it to trickle into the other zoning classifications, so what I did want to do is change the definition of what we call a subdivision. Because that is pretty much the basis of our entire subdivision regulations, which is a completely separate document than our land use resolution. So I chose to take a smaller approach and amend these 2 areas to allow this. And like you said, someone might be able to take advantage of it, but they would have to have such a long-term plan because they can only do it once every 5 years that it's not profitable for an actual developer to come in and do it.
I just see how people, you'd be surprised. No, you won't be surprised. No, you won't, I don't think of that. But I just think, we start that and up in my way where people have large acreages, I think we're just opening ourselves up for the fall of that end of the county. And I want us to hold on to something in this county that is kind of gonna look like it looks now for a long time. And that's
And I agree
that's
with you.
totally my
I agree with
opinion,
you.
that's my,
That's-
and that, I mean, that's just the area that I come from, and that's the thinking of the people where, why did I say where I come from? I was thinking, what am I saying, where I come from? Where I come from.
Where you live?
But anyway, where I live.
District 1.
Yeah, District 1, yeah. The biggest district with the fewest people, and that's where I'm from. So, anyway, that's my take on it.
And I definitely feel like that is echoed in very well in our comprehensive plan, that we want to keep
Yes.
that section of the county rural.
Yeah, and when it starts falling, I mean, we've had it, it'll just be like dominoes, and then finally, things won't be unique. Everything's gonna begin to look the same. And I hate to see that.
Other questions? Motion.
I don't even know I can't find my stuff, but I wanna make a motion that this not be amended as you presented. I want it to stay, is that a sensible motion? I want it to stay like it was before.
Motion to deny or
Yeah, that's
Motion to
this,
deny the resolution
that,
update.
yeah, I want to deny the
There's a
resolution.
motion of denial of the resolution update. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Fawcett, seconded by Commissioner Nix. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that is denied 4-0. Move on to new business. First up, we have consideration of proposal for Dawson County Food Drive spearheaded by Public Defender's Office. I presented that to you a couple of weeks ago. He wanted to put some food bins in the courthouse, the library, and Park and Rec, a couple other places like that that were county owned, to provide food to Rickman. And, any other information needed? Motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Nix. Second by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion.
I want to thank you for being here and being faithful, sitting through tonight.
And what are the dates? I know you sent them out.
Through the 10th.
All right, tell me.
It'd be July 15th.
But, oh, you changed those.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, he says, tell me again.
July 15th, week of July 15th. The proposed date, that's our next trial week, which is, increases foot traffic in the courthouse. So,
Okay, are the bins gonna be here? Is this the building you're gonna use?
yes, it'll be here, the fire station, and the library.
Okay.
And then hopefully next year we can expand, or like, have a little bit more foundation, we can expand into the school system as well.
Courthouse, fire station, and what?
Library. The library.
Library.
Station in town.
And I think we had talked about Kristen getting some PR out with our social media and all that to help facilitate driving the message that that's what we're doing.
Certainly, and I guess part of the proposal as well is that I'd be able to use, county email to, put out an email blast to the staff, things of that nature.
Chairman, may I say?
Go ahead.
On the location of these bins, would that be, I'd like to see that, or suggest that that be coordinated with our facilities folks and the fire folks to make sure that there's not any obstruction or anything like that that may create an issue.
Certainly.
And if you could get some competition with these departments, that would really bring a lot.
A contest.
Contest. Yeah, competition for how many pounds, and then offer them a treat,
That is the ultimate goal as we progress. This year, we'll have to kind of, we want to move into something competitive, prizes, things like that.
That'd be great, thank you.
And as far as sitting here for the zoning stuff, I've been following all that in the paper, so it's kind of nice to see it all play out.
Government in action.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. And that's approved 4-0. Next up, we have consideration of request to build bocce ball courts at Rock Creek Park as an Eagle Scout project. Young man's here tonight. He presented that to us 2 weeks ago. a lot of initiative on his part to want to do such a great project that would be such an advantage to our recreation park. Any other information needed?
I need to ask you a question. You were gonna get approval from, wasn't it, from the, the scouts?
Yes.
Has that happened?
No, I'm set up to have approval done by the BSA council on July 15th.
And you think that's, given that will happen?
Yes, they've been passing some piddly little projects lately.
Now,
Might come catch you, or they might not.
and we can still send, was there an address in your book? If we won't give you some money, can I just call you?
That's the fastest anybody's moved in here in a long time.
I think on the last page, if y'all still have your.
I've got it.
notebook.
I just see a phone number.
I thought there was email.
Well, there is, but I mean, I can't email you a check.
True.
I think we were going to give those to Kristen. She was gonna
Oh,
make
Kristen's
that.
gonna
Isn't that
have-
what you recommended?
What?
Commissioner Dix already donated, I believe, $100, and you picked it up.
Yes.
And I recommended all of you do
And
$100.
I owe to Andy, but I've not done it yet because I wanted to know if he got approved, but he's saying that he will. So she's saying he will. That's two saying.
And I will match these twos, $100 twos.
Are you going over mine? Boy, this is gonna get big. Betty, are you up in 100? Boy, I tell, Tim, you got your checkbook?
We will do our due
Yes,
diligence.
we will.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for considering me, for allowing me to do this project.
I got news back. I'll let the ladies know that I've been speaking with about this project with the Special Olympics children, and they were ecstatic that,
Really?
that this is moving forward, and just ecstatic that there was, that you were taking ownership of it and it worked out. And so it'd be a big benefit to them and their children that are in Dawson County and Lumpkin County, and everybody else too that gets to learn how to play bocce ball.
I'll get to play basketball too.
Motions.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines, seconded by Commissioner Fawcett. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. That's approved 4-0. Next up, we have consideration of Amicable Electric Membership Corporation Power Easement for Public Works Complex. David presented that 2 weeks ago. We have to grant that easement so that we can get power to this facility that we're building. And so any other information needed? Motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Satterfield, seconded by Commissioner Fawcett. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that's approved 4-0. Next, we have consideration of request for no through truck traffic on Blacks Mill Road. Mr. McKee presented that to you 2 weeks ago as well. And that was from Dawson Forest to
Harry Soto.
Harry Soto. Any other information needed? Motions.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation of no through truck traffic on Blacks Mill Road.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines,
Second.
second by Mr. Fawcett. Discussion.
Could I get an explanation of why it was David? I'm gonna miss that.
Did I move quicker?
Still not fast enough.
You certainly. The reason for no through truck traffic, very simply, it boils down to two things: the geometry of the road. The geometry of the road, primarily from Dawson Forest Road to where the pavement starts. The curves are such that it just doesn't dictate that type of traffic flow. Number two is the width of the road. The reason for that total length is there's no turnaround point past that. So if a truck comes down Dawson Forest, they'll see the no through truck signs. If they come down Harry Sosby, they'll see the no through truck signs, and as such, they won't. As with anything else, it has to be enforced, and we'll get a plan in place for that. I will note, I believe this question was raised a couple weeks ago, I will note if there are deliveries within that point, that's certainly allowable.
Yes.
And the road will withstand any of that. It's just that it's just not, the geometry doesn't allow for such to be a cut through.
Thank you.
Big piece of this is, and you alluded to it, is enforcement. I mean, we don't want to make rules for the sake of just making rules, but we got to make sure that we communicate that with the sheriff's department. If that's happening, then we enforce that just like Red Riding.
Other questions? Motion and second. Hearing none, please vote. And that's approved 4-0. Next up, we have consideration of request for Red Rider Road improvements. That was one-way going from Lumpkin Campground over to
Red Rider Road, and then the termination point will be a Freeland.
and also
Road.
a speed table.
Correct, yes, and I did, since our last meeting, I did spend a little bit of time, physically sitting on the side of the road watching, and I do have some concern with the speed. Even with me sitting on the side of the road with flashing lights on, they still come flying by. So my recommendation is one way, add speed tables, solve both of these issues temporarily till now, and that's what my recommendation is.
When you presented, the speed tables were not necessarily in the equation until you saw that it was needed, but you saw that it's needed.
We discussed speed tables, yes, and I think at the last time you are correct, I said that primarily we gotta get the traffic from passing, two vehicles passing. And then secondary to that would be speeding, if speeding continues. And again, I witnessed it firsthand, not just once, but for a period of time, so I believe that is necessary.
You communicated, I think you said you or your staff communicated with homeowners down through there, what was going on?
Nothing since the last meeting, but we have had communication, yes, with homeowners throughout that corridor, yes.
And what type of, when you sat there and watched traffic, were a lot of them construction trucks going to that subdivision, or were they just normal everyday through traffic?
Not as much trucks, it was residential vehicles, what I would say in residential vehicles, just normal everyday vehicles, is what was there. There was a truck did come down through there, the gentleman lives on the road. I actually stopped him once, a couple months back, and he told me he was going home, so. Going back to your enforcement, so yes, that's mainly vehicles, just passenger vehicles.
Did you say this was gonna displace people for about a mile? Is this the?
There is some displacement, I don't want to negate that.
Okay.
The total displacement is about 0.82, so yeah, just short of a mile, and I'm going to say the worst case scenario. So there is displacement. I certainly don't want to hide that fact. I think that displacement, the safety concerns at the intersection and the width of the road is somewhat negated by the displacement negated by the safety concerns.
We've already voted to have no through truck traffic there. Does that continue?
Yes, that still holds true.
Okay.
Absolutely, for the same reasons it did on Blacks Mill and this road, it's the same thing.
Any other questions for Dave? Thank you, Dave. Motions?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fawcett,
Second.
second by Commissioner Satterfield. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. It's approved 4-0. Next up, we have consideration of board appointment. Library Board, Gail Smith, this is a reappointment, term July 2019 through June 2023, and that was a recommendation from the Library Board. Motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Nix. Second. Second by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that's approved 4-0. Next up, we have RFP 338.19, the Veterans Memorial Park. That was the engineering portion of Veterans Park that David presented earlier today at the 4 o'clock work session. Needed to be placed on this agenda in reference to keep up with our timeline. That's associated with that entire project, which is not just the park, but also the senior center project as well. I think that dollar amount was $1,900,000 and what, David?
$1,966,284.25. I do want to add one point of clarification to something I said a couple hours ago. We talked about $426,000 of impact fees. To keep from having to come back before this board, I want to make sure that we put the language such that if it's allowable, there's certain things that can be allowable with those impact fees. And by meaning that we just discovered the impact fee possibility hours before I even came to this meeting at 4 o'clock. So, and there's some language in there roughly when I was looking in this meeting, there's some language about level of service and all that. I think we meet that, but if it's not funded through impact fees, it will solely be funded out of SPLOST 6, and there is funding there to cover it. Just wanted to make that clarification. I don't want to have to come back because of the funding miscommunication.
Just a quick question, if there is funding there, do we not have enough to fund the fields?
If there's funding there.
I mean, you said
So,
there's enough funded.
So there is not enough funding to fund both the civil improvements for Veterans Park and the turf fields, no.
Okay.
There is a possibility.
To the end. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Finish it.
That's correct.
Other information? Motion.
Make a motion to approve as presented, taking the funds out of impact fees and SPLOST, if we can take it out of impact fees. If not, all the money should come out of SPLOST.
Perfect.
Motion by Commissioner Satterfield, second by Commissioner Nix. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. That's approved 4-0. Next up, we have contract assignment by Professional Probation Services. This was basically a name change to the current contract. The current company was bought out by this company. So same service, same everything, other than just a name change. Any other information needed? Motions.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fawcett. Second by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that's approved 4-0. Next up, we have FY 2020 Legacy Link contract. Ms. Vicki presented that to you a couple of hours ago, 4 o'clock session. Another item that needed to be taken care of. It basically is a repeat year to year. I think our portion was in the $300 and something thousand range, which is budget. There's $100 and something thousand from state and federal fundings that helps our with feeding our seniors and people that are homebound. So any other information needed on that? Motion.
Motion to approve the 2020 Legacy Link contract as presented.
Motion by Commissioner Satterfield,
Second.
second by Commissioner Fawcett. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that's approved 4-0. We do have Mr. Tom Kemp, who has signed up in this segment of public comment. So Mr. Kemp, come on up.
You folks have been here a long time.
That's okay.
And we have too.
You have to-
I'm representing 54 residents at Riley Place subdivision. You folks have dealt with this. I came here, I spoke in favor of a group that was to build. But some things have come to light that have been contrary to what they presented to us and what they said to us. And I want to I just want to ask the board some questions tonight and let you think about those and answer them whenever you can, okay? First of all, how many residents of Riley Place? Okay? This tells you there's some concern on their hearts and minds, and I'll explain why that is as I go through this, okay? One of the questions that we have is, it appears that the property that's being built at Riley Place in connection with the 54 that are already there and the 130 to 40 plus that are being constructed now are constructed with rent in mind. And the question we have is was there any time that this was brought to this board's attention that this could be rental property or might be used as rental property or sold to a rental agency once it was finished? And if it can, then we'd like to know that so we can back off, okay? But we feel that Riley Place is a section that was zoned as single-family attached units. There's 54 people who bought their homes with that in mind and thinking with that in mind. And the question that we have is can you go into a single-family unit in the same subdivision and build a group of rental property in it? Now, the group that's building will tell you that it is not going to be rental property, but some publications have come to light that says that the money that was loaned was for that purpose. And when you look at the property, then you'll begin to think, I don't think they're building that to sell, because it does not go with the property that we have. So this is one of the questions. Was there a time in the county that somebody got that permission, or was that question ever asked? Because we as residents didn't ask that question. We assumed that they were building the same type property that was there because they said we're building like property. So my question is, what does like building mean when you say that? Are you talking about roof line? Are you talking about outward appearance? Are you talking about size of units? Are you talking about distance from the street? Are you talking about the use of the building, whether it's for a family resident or where it's built to rent? Are those involved, or even the value that's there? Of the present homes that are there, 54 of them, 26 of those units have 2,000 plus square feet. 20,000 would be real nice to live in. That's a dream, okay? 2,000 square feet. Some of them have as much as 2,200 square feet of the 26. None of the units that we have seen a plan for are quite that size. They're 500 to 600 feet smaller than that. Now I admit there are many units there that are the size they're building, but all that they're building is going to be in the neighborhood of 1,500 to 1,600 square feet, somewhere in that ballpark. Another question that our people ask is the sewer, that they're building, adding another 26 units to that area. And the question that's come to us, and I'm sure they have looked at it, and I know the county's looked at that, but our people just want to know, is a water line sewer that was constructed to handle the 100 plus units that we have, is it big enough to handle all the rest that's there? One of the reasons that the questions were raised is when we were presented the plan of what they were going to do. They gave us a plan of let me just give you an example of a 3,200 square foot water surface swimming pool, okay? They admitted to me this week that when they presented to the board, they presented a much smaller pool because what they built is about 1,600 square feet water surface. Now, I'll say to you that they have come to us and said we'll leave both pools. They have attempted to work with us on that. But not all that they have said to us has come to fruition. The buildings do not look like they said they were going to look. We gave them the shingles designed to go on the roof, and they're departing totally from what all the rest of our homes are built there. So there's just a difference there in what they're doing. The other question I have for you is, how does an HOA work when 30% of the people are homeowners and 70% of the people, approximately 70%, can become renters? And with a rental agency that is in control and has a voice to speak and determine what happens, how does those two correlate? And so when you have 54 units that are built for families, and then you have this group coming in building what appears to be, and all indications are, rental property, then I don't know how that's going to work out. Our people are concerned about that. Many of our people bought their home planning to stay there till they die, okay? That's their home. That's where they're retired to. That's where they're going to stay. And so they're concerned about that. The other question I want to ask you, are there guidelines in place in this county to protect us with the property that's being built from being rented as Section 8? If the group cannot sell the homes or rent the homes, is there any protection for us homeowners to keep them from going to the government and saying, we want subsidy we want some help to put renters in these facilities? And so that's a question that has come up, and some questions that we ask. Builders have agreed to pay the streets. If we go by the 18 contract, they've agreed to pay the streets. And I hope there's some plans in place in the county that says what quality or what specs have got to be made in maintaining the streets in a subdivision such as Riley Place. Well, let me give you some reasons why the people are questioning. In the past 6 to 7 years, the 54 residents have spent between $45,000 and $50,000 in street repairs, mowing lots, carrying trash off that has been dumped on a cul-de-sac at the end of our unit. A couple of times a year, we've mowed the lots. We could not find who the owners were for a long time, and when we did find, then there was no help coming to keep those vacant lots up. So in order to keep it from looking like we were all grown up, then we decided we needed to get it mowed. And so a couple times a year, we'd have those lots mowed. We pay $125 a month, homeowners dues, and the owners of the vacant lots pay zero, okay? They do not pay anything, and I'm sure there are regulations and guidelines that protect them and put them in place in order to do that.
Yes. $125 a month?
A month, yes. That is to cover taking care of the poo, garbage, light, falling into poo, and the yards. I don't have to mow grass, Chris.
You get everything.
So that's the beauty of it. But it's $125 a month, 54 residents to pay. Yet, this year, the builders decided to come in and ask our HOA board to resign. And when the HOA board questioned that, they demanded that they resign because we can outvote you. Now, keep in mind that when they asked this to happen, the guidelines for our HO board was you have to live on the property to serve on the homeowners board. As a matter of fact, we had a couple of people that wanted to serve, that owned the property, and their daughter lived in their property, and they were not allowed. The owner was not allowed to serve because he did not live there. But now we have a HOA board that does not reside there, does not pay any dues, And they're the ones that are making the decisions. So what I'm saying to you is I don't have any authority to speak to you tonight. I'm just a spokesman for these 54 people that don't have HOA board. So with those things in mind, I hope you get a little understanding of why our people are concerned about what is taking place. I received a call yesterday from the builder. They were trying to be very helpful. They're often comparing contracts of the covenants or the zoning of the 1999 and the zoning of 2018. The 2018 zoning allowed for 26 more units, a clubhouse and a pool, and in return for us rezoning that, they were going to pave the streets, give us 60 parking spaces, and so all of it looked good. When the units are being built, we discovered that all of ours have some brick on them somewhere, okay? About a third of them have brick all over the front, but the others are trimmed with brick. They've agreed to do that with if we'll accept the 18 contract. They've agreed to leave the pool, the old pool, as well as the new pool. Well, that's great, except homeowners' dues, keeping up 2 pools gets expensive rather than opposed to 1 pool. And what we would have preferred was to build the 3,200 square foot pool that they agreed to build in the first place. But now they're wanting to do it that way. Another question I have for you, if we decide to tell them that we want to go back to the 1999 zoning contract, and they lose the 26 units that have been added, and you go back to the rezoning of the property to make it light commercial, do they have to tear the clubhouse down? And do they have to fill in the pool? These are just some things that we deal with. And I'm sure that maybe they'll be able to work with us, but they seem to try to come into every meeting we have, even though they're asked not to, that this is a meeting of homeowners. And they tend to show up anyway. They have met with you folks and with the county attorney, and not one of us have been invited to attend one of those meetings to try to work out some guidelines for them. So at the last minute, they come with some guidelines for us. Those are just some questions I have. And I would appreciate any consideration that the board has in answering those, especially the idea of if these become rental property, is there any protection in the county for us that says they can't make you do this or they can't make you do that as homeowners, and they cannot rent this property under government subsidy. This would be a big help. And one reason I mention this is you folks need to be thinking of these terms, because everything that's coming to this county right now is becoming complicated. And so we in the county need to be sure that our zoning laws are up to date and that they're enforced, and we'll keep them separate so we can tell this is exactly what's going on. Because in our mind, there's some question about what's taking place in Riley Place. And whether we're being misled or whether it's under false assumptions, we feel that there's some things that are not totally up to par with what was expected. Have I covered everything?
They, on the phone call with us the other day, they said they want us to make a decision for the community. Because there's the work stoppage right now, and they said if we decide with them on the phone, they'll get that work going if we choose what zoning is. So I don't even know if we have the authority to give that builder the go-ahead to pick what zoning they want to move. She said that because they're about to go into court or something like that, that's why she wanted Tom and I to make a decision yesterday before the meeting. And she also encouraged none of us to show up at this meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I need to come here.
Do you want to respond?
Yeah, go ahead, ask that question.
All right, go ahead.
First,
Okay?
I feel like that, because we've had a discussion on this in executive session, it would be somewhat inappropriate for me to respond to the gentleman's question at this time. So I would respectfully ask that we refrain from responding.
That's the reason we wanted to ask you what we should do.
Mr. Chairman.
Why?
can I ask-
Why can't he respond?
Why is it a big secret?
Why is it a big secret?
And why weren't we invited?
What does executive session have to do with something?
but we don't.
2 hours that I will never get back.
Mr. Camp, you have anything else?
Oh my God, really?
Come on.
And do they get to go back to work and just keep building apartments?
Mr. Camp, do you have a copy of those questions and all those?
I just happen to have extra copies.
Um,
Let me be sure I haven't written all over this one, okay? I wish I had one for everybody. Can you make one for everybody?
I
Thank you.
want our attorney to have one. Pass it
So
down.
can y'all tell us if the work order still stops or they go back to work? Or y'all just can't tell us nothing? We sat here for 3 hours for nothing.
I will say, Mr. Chairman, that the gentleman raises a lot of interesting questions that I would like to take back to my office and take a look at, as well as the gentleman from the audience. But again, in a public forum like this, and because, ladies and gentlemen, of the attorney-client privilege, I really can't speak to that at this time.
Are you a county attorney?
We're the public accounting.
We're the ones complaining.
Right.
No,
Calm down. Calm
And I
down.
would just like to say,
Calm down.
I would just like to say, this is just District 4, my district, and I go by your place every day. And I appreciate this board, they listen to me and me coming to them saying, look, we've got to do something for Riley Place. And believe me, I promise you, we are working and doing everything legal to get this mess straightened out.
Thank you.
So I just ask that you be patient with us, and legal is taking care of it. I'm as upset as you are about it because it's just not right. So please,
all you
I
have to
promise
say.
you, we're working on this.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Good job, Tom.
All right. With that, we are adjourned.
Oh.